the sliding door on the inside. It's almost finished. I've got a frame to go in here, which I'll show you in a second. And the main things that I wanted from it was I wanted to cover all of the raw metal so that there was nothing visible, purely from from how it looks perspective, but also for condensation. I didn't want any kind of cold surfaces left inside this internal part of the van. I also wanted it to look really nice, and we got some inspiration from a professional converter we found at the Van Life Festival in Stratford. We saw a build by a company called Carpenter Ingram. They had the most amazing really highly polished and stained tongue and groove on their doors. It looked really, really nice. So we thought we'd try and do something kind of similar to that, and got a few tips from them. Thanks very much, guys. And the other consideration on how we did the doors was still allowing access to things like the door handles, to registration plate lights, because I do see builds and people just glue a piece of ply to the whole door, but then if you've got a problem with your door handle, or you need to replace the bulb in the registration, which happens quite often actually, and is an MOT failure, you can't get to them without having to redo your whole door. Didn't want to do that. I will still have a job for me because there's a lot of screws, so I really hope I don't have to do it very soon, but when I do need to, then I can. So the first part of the doors was to make the panels out of the tongue and groove. This was very much my parents' doing. I'm still working a full-time job in the middle of this build, so whilst I was at work, this was something they could just do as and when, and just keep plodding on until we had all the panels, and I think there's 8 of them in total. For some of the areas we were able to use the original templates that came out, which were made of ply and plastic. Some of them we had to kind of do a template for ourselves, and we made the whole thing out of tongue and groove, and we used these sash clamps to get them all together, glued them all together, and then on some of them there's a sort of rail on the back that joins it all and holds it in place. Sometimes we've kept that rail on the tongue and groove pieces to keep them together, and on some of the other panels we fixed them directly to the door. And for the ones that didn't have a supporting piece that joins them all together, we kind of strapped them together with other pieces of wood to keep them flat as they dried. The next thing was to give them all a real good sanding, and then screw them down onto just a supporting piece to keep them in place for staining and varnishing. The back of all of the panels have been painted in a PVA glue and water mixture. This just adds a little bit of protection. We're hoping it will reduce any kind of warping of the wood that's just come from moisture basically. And then Mum spent many hours staining these in the Jacobean oak wood dye, and then oiling them with the lovely Osmo oil, which we didn't get much footage of, but you can see how beautiful this looked when it's been freshly varnished. I then started playing around with the rubber trim and trying to find a way to effectively make this stick around the edge of the doors where it was visible when it would be closed. This is the trim I'm using. It's just like a V trim, I think they call it. Found it on eBay, got 20 meters, which I think should be just about enough to do all 3 doors. We've tested a few different glues on this rubber trim. The no nails worked and stuck, but made a hot mess. The Bostik all-purpose glue didn't glue at all, but the super glue stuck solid. I think it's kind of melted it onto the metal, so that is not coming off. So I started super gluing this trim all the way around the doors. It was quite easy to do. I just wore some rubber gloves to protect my hands from the glue, and when I got to a corner I just kind of stretched it around a little bit in the right amount so that it doesn't stick out. So I've now put this all around the edge of both my back doors ready for carpeting, and I'm going to carpet inside and then tuck into this trim, which hopefully should give a nice clean finish. And then I'll insulate in the holes, and then we've got the panels ready to mount on top to complete the doors. When I've put the carpet on before, I've usually sprayed the whole thing in one go and then started applying it from the top down, but I knew this would take me a lot of time, and the glue after 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so just doesn't stick so well anymore. You have to end up spraying it again. But I thought with this it would actually be easier to work from the bottom up, and then I can actually see and access the next piece before it needs spraying and going up. So I started off by cutting them in strips almost to the right width to begin with, and then was just careful that I didn't twist it at all going up, keep that straight line. And this method seemed to work really well, working from the bottom up. You can see here how there's already some framework in that sort of window area, so Dad's basically put that in with no nails. That's the receiving battens basically for the wooden panels. So where we didn't have any metal to screw into, we've used these glued in panels instead. And then I filled in between these with some insulation that we had left over from the floor. In the top I've used the dial insulation because it was just a much bigger space to stuff than the hole gives you access to. And of course the second I'd finished that, Dad could not wait to screw one of the panels in and see how it looked. Got one door finished and it is looking so good. So happy with the finish here. It looks really professional, really smart. Trim works great. Carpets underneath, hidden away if it's a bit of a rough line. And then we've got these lovely varnished and oiled panels on top with the little gold cups and screws. So I'm just finishing off this door over here now. Insulation's in the top and the middle one ready to go. For the bottom, I'm just making these kind of little sausagey, pillowy bags. Just putting some of the dial insulation in plastic because sometimes you get moisture and stuff coming in through the handles, and I think it's more a thing on the side door, but there's often little drainage holes right underneath to allow any water to sort of come through. And then this just stops my insulation getting wet and moist basically, just protects it there. So then the panels are ready to go on this side as well. This piece I can't get back in. The little catches on it are all broken or bent. They look like they were already mostly that way, so I might try and order a new one. And we completely forgot about these buttons, so we're gonna see if we can retrofit a hole in the panel to go on here, because this basically allows you to open the door further than the ordinary mount, so you can push it all the way back. Yeah, and I would like to retain that feature if we can, so we're going to see if we can put one in, but as it would be, it's going to be right on the join, so we'll see whether or not that's feasible, check the templates from the ones that came out and go from there. Trim on ready for the carpet. Just close the door to make sure that it lines up everywhere okay, and it does. So now the carpet can go in. I ordered 20 metres of this trim for the doors and I've used pretty much all of it. I reckon there's about 3 metres left, so definitely wouldn't have wanted any less. I think it took me about a day to do the 2 back doors and then a whole other day for the sliding one, which is just way more complicated because you can't access so much of it because it kind of sits behind and then below the van door what you can actually get to. Right down at the bottom now of this sliding door, which is about that much gap between the vehicle, but it's also about this far below the door, no, below the floor. So I'm kind of holding my thumb to where that cut line is, from I can feel underneath, and then Mum can cut to it between us. We should better get that in. Should we pop some in, see how it looks? And then this tucks into that little trim. Is that enough? We've got enough in there? Yeah, just about. This is the bottom and it won't be very visible, but still want it to look as nice as we can, don't we? So we've reached the final corner, which won't barely be seen, so it doesn't have to be the neatest, but in the way that it does, the carpet has stretched. So this is not going to meet up flush and flat. So I'll make a join here, but it would barely be seen, so that's fine. Mum and I have been carpeting this door today, and it took us most of the day. It was an absolute faff, but now it is done. Thank goodness. So we previously made this frame, which was from the original ply piece that came out of this door. We cut a hole in the middle and tried to sort of sand it down and make it nice and smooth, but it's not as straight as we'd like. The more we cut away, the fiddlier and less secure it becomes, because it's only 5mm ply, and that's, you know, like nearly 1.5 meters wide. So we're thinking we might build a second frame out of something sturdier to go around here instead. So that will hopefully then finish off all the pieces to go on here, because we've got the panels for there and for the bottom ready to go as well. And then I'm going to put a handle here because this door weighs quite a bit, and when you're trying to pull that out and pull it open, you really got to put some welly behind it, and all you've got to hold on to is this catch. I don't want to put any undue strain on the catch that I don't have to. And if I'm on a hill and I'm pulling the weight against me, it's going to be even harder, and I'm only small, so I'm going to whack a little handle on here somewhere. I think that is going to be something extra to pull on and to close it as well when I'm trying to shut the door. So this is the frame now. It's been fully made. We've glued and screwed it together, and Mum's given it a good sand, varnish, stain, all that malarkey, and it's almost ready to go on. The only thing that I want to do, I think it will be much easier to do this before it's mounted, is I'm going to put a few little holes in here and then insert a magnet, and that way I can put my window covers on and they will magnet onto here and cover the window off. So I'm going to just finish that off before they go on. and then I'm basically going to glue it here around this edge with no nails, and then just secure that in place. That will cover all the rough edge here of the carpet. We haven't done that yet, and I wanted to get the video online, so I thought I would just show you what we've got coming, and then soon I can show you the rest of the build. Sneak preview. There's a lot more in here. I think I'll do the video on the bulkhead next, and then the overhead cabinets and the ceiling in another one soon. We're now working on the utilities. I've got the kitchen sort of framed out. I've started off putting some of the electrics in here. That's my current project, and we've also we've done the bed, and we've got to do a pull-out table here, so that's kind of what we're working on today.